In this video, we're going to show you how to install the brake flex hose on your Cadillac Escalade located on the passenger side front wheel. I'm going to start by rotating the wheel until we can match up the notch in the center cap with a notch in the wheel. You can use a trim tool or a screwdriver and gently go in there and pry this off. Set that center cap aside. I'm going to use a 22mm socket to loosen and remove the lug nuts. Remove the wheel and set it aside. Now with the wheel removed, you're going to go ahead and access the flex hose via this bracket here on our upper control arm. Now the flex hose clamped on and it runs up to the hard line and that runs down to the caliper itself. Three things we have to remove: this flex hose, or for the ABS hose here or line, use your trim tool, pop that up and out. Over here, we have the electronic front suspension, and this is the leveler or level sensor. So we're going to pop that socket off. Pop that off like so. And then right here, we have the bolt securing this in place. So I'm just going to use a 10mm socket. Loosen and remove this bolt. We do have to remove this ball stud from the bracket itself. So let's go ahead and do that next. Use a 10mm wrench. Go ahead and loosen this and remove it. All right, set that aside. Now that we have the bracket off, if you follow the flex hose up, the flex hose attaches to the hard line, and the hard line and the flex hose are joined to this bracket here via a horseshoe clip. First thing you want to do, go ahead and spray this down with some rust penetrant as we did. Let it set for a little bit. That way there is going to make it easier to come off. Using a 13mm open-end wrench, you want to go ahead and loosen this. Now in loosening this here, you want to make sure that the nut spins separate of the hard line. If the hard line is spinning with the nut, you need to back off, spray it down with some rust penetrant, and continue to work it like this until they separate. Now we do have a catch can underneath. We are going to lose some brake fluid. All right, separate that. For the retainer clip up top here, I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver. And I'm going to come on this side and tap it. This here is the horseshoe clip. You want to make sure when you install it that the arch is facing upward and the tab that you use to get it off is facing up. Go ahead and pull this out. Let's go to our replacement line, which is right here. On the top, it has an interlocking tab on it here. So when you insert up into the bracket, you can actually rotate the hose until that pops in just like so. Once it locks in and it is flush, install your lock tab here, your horseshoe clip. Go Grab that hard line, go ahead and set that up in there. You need to thread that in by hand. Make sure that it threads in before you put any tools on there. And grab your wrench, and we're going to snug that down. You do want to make sure it's pretty tight. Give it a quick spray with some solvent. And let's move to the caliper side. On the caliper side here, where the hose comes over, is held in by an 11mm banjo bolt. Loosen and remove that. You want to pay attention to how this is installed. There is a tab here that is on the back side, and the rest does not have a tab. And you'll see again when I install the new one. So go ahead and remove this. There is a copper washer on the inboard side as well as the bolt head side. We need to remove that. Dispose of that copper washer. Grab the bolt, and there should be another copper washer there. We want to remove that as well. We will be replacing these. And then we get that washer off of that. We're going to install a new washer on the bolt head side. Put that through. Install a new washer on the inboard side. Line that up, and we're going to thread that in to the caliper. And the tab that I was referring to before was this raised edge right here that faces inboard. Once you have that bolt started, let's go ahead and snug that down. You do want to make sure that is good and tight. Then we'll go ahead and spray that down, a little bit of solvent. On the top of our control arm here, let's go ahead and clean this. And then grab our bracket. Line this up and get our bolt started. Use our 10 mil to go ahead and snug that down. Once that bolt bottoms out, give it a good quarter turn. Make sure it's good and secure. Now we have the ball stud right here for the level sensor. You need to thread that on. Once you get that started, we'll go ahead and thread that in the rest of the way. Now on the ball stud here, you just want to make sure that it's snug. You don't want to over tighten this here. So once that bottoms out, just give it a little bit more. And go ahead and position our socket here. Now what I like to do is, because this is a pivot point, I'm going to put a small dab of grease on there. Go ahead and line that up, and we're going to pop this on. Install the ABS wire harness right there, push that on. At this point here, we have everything secured. Let's go ahead and proceed to our brake bleeding process. Now, before we start our brake bleeding process, the first thing you want to do is hop up in the vehicle, pump up that brake pedal. What's going to happen is that's going to push all of the air down this line and into the caliper area here. That's going to help speed up this process. Second step you want to do, make sure you get a bucket underneath, a catch can or something like that, and get your safety glasses on for this job. Now right here on the back side of the caliper, you're going to find possibly this rubber cap. Yours may or may not have it. Simply just peel off that rubber cap, and that's going to expose our bleeder screw right here. Now this is a 10 millimeter. What we're going to do is we're going to use our box wrench here and we want to loosen this. Now sometimes if this is stuck, you can use some rust penetrant on it. Let it soak. Ours did break free. And by opening this up, what's happening is we're going to allow for that brake fluid to come down this line, and eventually the fluid will start to come out through the backside of the piston, and you're going to see this start to maybe bubble a little bit with some fluid. Our goal is to get a solid stream of fluid to start coming out here, and that will be our brake bleeding process. Just give this a little bit of time while that fluid comes down and pushes all that air out. Now at this point here, we have a pretty good stream of fluid coming out. We're just going to let that drip for a short bit. We do have some bubbles coming out right there. So what we'll do here, let's go ahead and close this up. I'm going to snug this. Our next step is we want to go ahead and top off the fluid in the reservoir. With the hood open, locate your reservoir. With a rag and some solvent, clean the top. The reason for this is we don't want to have any debris fall inside that unit. And the other thing you want to make sure is that you can identify your fill marks on the side. Here we have a minimum, which is right at the seam, and a max, which is roughly about an inch up above it. Open up that cap, twist it counterclockwise. In most cases, it's going to identify what type of brake fluid you want to use. DOT3 as well as DOT4 are going to be okay for this application. If it doesn't have that, make sure you identify that type of fluid before you replace it. We're going to top off our reservoir to the max line. Install the cap. Our next step is to go ahead and hop into the vehicle. We want to pump up the brake on this here. It's best if you can start the vehicle, pump it up 8 to 10 times, and hold that brake pedal. As long as that brake pedal is staying firm in the upward position here, you should be all set. Now, if that pedal should be soft and mushy, come back and repeat the brake bleeding process at that wheel 1 to 2 more times. If that doesn't fix the soft pedal, you want to go ahead and perform the complete vehicle brake bleeding process at this time. Now at this point, I'm going to spray that down, get any of the residual brake fluid off of this. And if you have the rubber cap for the bleeder, simply pop that on. Go ahead and install your wheel. After we get all these started, I'm going to come back and tighten them all down. Go ahead and torque your lug nuts to 140 foot-pounds. You're going to do this in a crisscross pattern. Go ahead and take your center cap, locate one of the notches, line it up with one of the notches on the wheel. Pop it on. With the hood open, locate your reservoir. With a rag and some solvent, clean the top. The reason for this is we don't want to have any debris fall inside that unit. And the other thing you want to make sure is that you can identify your fill marks on the side. Here we have a minimum, which is right at the seam, and a max, which is roughly about an inch up above it. Open up that cap, twist it counterclockwise. In most cases, it's going to identify what type of brake fluid you want to use. DOT3 as well as DOT4 are going to be okay for this application. If it doesn't have that, make sure you identify that type of fluid before you replace it. And we're going to use our extraction tool to remove as much brake fluid from the reservoir as possible. You can use something like a turkey baster or something like that, any suction tool. And then have a container to put that into. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses when doing this. Just put that into an alternate reservoir somewhere so you can dispose of that properly later. We're going to fill up the reservoir. You can see we went over the max line. What we're going to do is we're going to seal this up and proceed to our brake bleeding process. As we do that, it's going to leak out fluid and it's going to dissipate down through here. Periodically, we're going to come back and top off the reservoir during our process. So our procedure for bleeding our brake calipers themselves, we're going to start at the right rear, then we're going to go to the left rear, then to the right front, and ending with the left front. So go ahead and locate your bleeder on the back side here. We're going to pull this off. And we have a hose here that goes to a catch can underneath. I'm going to put that on. Now there is a clear hose on this that goes to our bottle. So what we're going to do is as we open up that bleeder, we're going to watch for air bubbles coming through. What we want is a solid stream of fluid coming through. So at this point, I'm going to have the person inside the vehicle pump up the brakes 3 to 5 times, and they're going to hold pressure on that. And then I'm going to open up the bleeder screw, letting fluid come through. Go ahead. Okay, they're holding that pedal. And open this up. Now this is a 10 millimeter. Okay. Pump it up. I'm going to continue this procedure. Could take anywhere from maybe 2 to 5 times. Okay, no air bubbles. So we're going to secure this. We're going to pull off our drain. Give that a quick wipe. Now we're going to go ahead and repeat the same exact process over on the driver's side rear. Let's pop this cap on. And we do that same process on the other side. At this point here, you want to go up top, and we're going to top off the master cylinder fluid. Open up the reservoir. Fill the reservoir to the max line. Install cap. Now here we are on the right front wheel, and the third one that we need to do, remove the rubber boot from the bleeder if you have one. If not, it's just going to be exposed. And install our rubber seal here with our tube. Go ahead and pump up the brakes. Had a little bit of air in there. Go ahead, pump it up. Okay, that is solid. And clean off the port. Install the rubber cap. Go ahead and proceed to the driver's side front. Open up the reservoir. If the rubber is poking out like that, simply push that in so it's recessed. Fill the reservoir to the max line. install cap. Now you want to clean any mess and pump your brake pedal to make sure that it's firm. If it's not, then bleed the entire system again, torque your wheels to 140 foot-pounds.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.